Google saying, well, we're still doing a lot of work with the department. We're back. We're back in business with DoD. But then, I was on a call with leadership, both on the government side and the Google side. And you have, 20 general officers on the call. Not one would have the brain or the balls, I don't know, to ask the question that I asked, which is, hey, great, you want to do business again with us. Thanks. Love it. But are you willing to give us access to technologies if it's going to be used on weapon systems? Or is it just for email and business nonsense? Because business stuff is great, but this is not what the mission is about, right? So you're okay taking the business money, but you're not okay taking the weapon money.
Hey, welcome to Unlatched Mind. This is episode 54. My guest today is Nicolas Chaillan. Nicolas was the first, now former, Air Force Chief Software Officer. He was also the Special Advisor for Cloud Security and DevSecOps at the U.S. Department of Defense. He's also recognized as, he was born in France. He's from France. He's recognized as one of France's youngest entrepreneurs. He's founded over 12 companies and created and sold over 180 innovative software products to dozens and dozens of Fortune 500 companies. Nicolas joins us today to talk about the threat from China. And what he's seen, within the Pentagon as things that we're just not doing is keep up with China. He doesn't pull any punches. In fact, when he left his position as the Chief Software Officer, he was pretty vocal. He did not pull any punches, and he just, he's the kind of guy that calls a spade. So it was fun to talk to him. So I enjoyed the conversation. So let's just jump in. Well, Nicolas Chaillan, thank you so much for your time, man. I really appreciate it. You have quite a background and quite a bio. So before we jump in, maybe just start with a little bit about who you are. Give us a little background on who Nicolas is.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Pretty
Absolutely.
excited to be here. Well, my background is obviously pretty different from what you see in DoD. I was born in France, moved to the US about 12 years ago. Became a citizen about 6 years ago, so that's pretty fresh. I was an entrepreneur for 22 years, created 12 companies. The first company I founded back in France, I was 15, and grew to 12 countries, and really built a lot of software innovation, cyber, innovative products in the software space, B2B, mostly. Ended up selling 187 products to 45 Fortune 500. So I've done a lot of M&A, a lot of design of products and bringing products to life. And then I became the chief architect at DHS right a month after becoming a citizen, because I wanted to make a difference finally. And that was the time of the Paris attacks with ISIS, and so wanted to try to do a little bit better than stupid mobile apps. And so started at DHS. Kind of realized, the cyber state of the nation was way worse than I thought. You watch all these fancy TV shows and you feel like we're doing so well, and then you go into the government and you realize that's all a dream, and we need to do much better. So that's where also I started to get a little bit worried about the future for our kids, and I got a call to come and bring DevSecOps to the Department of Defense. So I became the special advisor for cyber and DevSecOps at OSD, and we created the first chief software office, and so I became the first chief software officer as well.
Neat. That's amazing. Yeah. Now, when you said you started with DHS about a month after you got here, was that the plan all along, or did you get here and say, oh, shit, I think I need to flex my plan here because I want to help. They need help more than I thought.
Yeah, so I became a citizen in 2016, and so before that I had reached out to DHS to see if I could help already, but they were pretty clear that if you're not a citizen, you can't do much. So I was holding a green card, so I couldn't do much. And then the minute where I got my citizenship, we already had lined up everything for me to join the government, and within a month I was in the job, so that was pretty cool.
So as Chief Software Officer, again, like you said, you were the first for the Air Force, the first CSO. How long total were you in this role? I know you left, and I do want to talk about you leaving, because that was I followed you personally, and in my world, we all followed you, and it was pretty. Your leaving was pretty impactful. So I want to get into that. But how long were you there at that role in total?
Yeah, so total in duty was 3 years and 2 years at the chief software office.
Okay.
I was the first one in the entire U.S. government, and then they decided to create quite a few of them. There's now one also for the entire DoD as well. But both of the roles are unfilled. The DoD CSO also resigned, like me. Pretty upset about it too, And so it's been kind of a pretty bad momentum for the last year. You've seen quite a lot of great people resign.
Yeah, and it does hurt me and you as citizens to say this, but yeah, that I've seen that trend, and people that are trying to make a difference, a real difference, not jump on the bandwagon and get part of the machine and do demos after demo after demo, and just just getting in line with the acquisition process and all that. That just the folks that are really trying to move the needle and actually disrupt, innovate, and actually disrupt the way we're doing things seem to not, unfortunately, last, and that is disturbing, right? So obviously you were one of those folks. When you left, it was pretty. I mean, you were pretty vocal about it. I mean, I follow you on social media, and you. I don't want to. I guess I'll say you left guns a-blazing, because you kind of did. But
Yeah.
to me, you were very explicit that it didn't seem, from me, again. There could be all sorts of nuance to your situation, but you left, and I read it as, wow, it was your passion was so just to make such a difference, and you kept hitting your head against the wall, and you said, this is just not worth my time. I know you had a small child at the time, and I don't know, it just seemed like you were just throwing good energy after bad. Did I characterize that right? I mean, is it what really caused you to leave?
Well, it's funny because when I started, I had no kids, and then when I left, I had 3 kids because I had twins, and then I had my first daughter, so all 3 girls. So that kind of kept me up at night, in terms of like the ability of our kids and grandkids in the future to be able to compete against China. What I would see is kind of the complacency and the incompetence and the silos and egos kind of getting in the way of common sense. We feel pretty good about spending $800 billion of taxpayer money in defense, but I would argue probably 90% gets wasted. Probably 60% just on the broken acquisition processes and requirements. And then you're going to see another 20% focused on the wrong things. And then you're going to see 10% of mistakes, which is pretty fair. And then what's left is what sticks. And unfortunately, most people don't realize that. And so what we did demonstrate is a small group of people can actually demonstrate a pretty good set of outcomes. We were able to do a lot of things in 3 years, including demonstrate that everything we're talking about in terms of agility, digital transformation, DevSecOps, adoption for the enterprise is doable, including on very old legacy programs like F-16s, F-35, the U-2 jets, on nuclear systems, on jets, bombers, space systems.
Right.
We were the first one to do all this stuff. So clearly, the excuse that we would hear about, the DoD software being special and the inability for legacy programs to do this kind of stuff were completely wrong. What was frustrating to me is that the leadership would say the right things and agree that the outcomes we demonstrated were the right things to do. In fact, we saved 100 years of time, by the way, in 1 year moving to DevSecOps with 27 programs. Can you imagine that's the difference between winning or losing the next wars? And so that's pretty mind-boggling. And so the leadership would be like, yeah, this is the stuff to do. We want to do that. Let's do it. And then you would not see any kind of action when it came to mandating it to the bigger primes and the bigger engagements. So we would only play with like the 2% side of the budget instead of the 98, right? And so if you really want to make a dent and you want to make this success, it cannot be the exception. It has to be the norm. And so, particularly after the new administration came in, I felt like the momentum completely died. A lot of people talked about leaving, and honestly, for me, because I was lucky enough to make money before my time in the government, I don't need to work to make money. And so, I had the freedom, if you will, to say what I want to say. Most people want to get, a job after their time in the government, and I get that, right? They're going to get the cushy bold jobs in some of the defense industrial-based companies. For me, I didn't really care. I wanted to do what's right, and more importantly, raise awareness, because what you see is the citizens really not being tracking the situation when it comes particularly to China. I think we overclassify, and we always disguise the truth. You hear the chairman of the Joint Staff always talk about China as a near peer adversary, when it's completely false, and they're leading in some of the most important capabilities, like hypersonic, cyber, AI, machine learning, data access in massive volumes. Of course, they steal countless IP from U.S. companies and the U.S. government. So at the end of the day, you're competing against a nation that's very eager to dominate the world with very toxic beliefs, completely opposed to what we believe in. At least I like to believe so. And so, 1.4 billion people, 120 million of those are science and technology, people. So that's a third of the United States. That's a pretty concerning thing if we become so complacent that we become irrelevant.
Yeah, it's no. I mean, again, I always try to take the perspective from. I always try to look at other sides of things, but I don't disagree with anything you said. I mean, I don't. And what you said earlier about you not needing money to work. I mean, I really do think, or needing to work to make money to live, for example, right, to support your family. You had that already done, which was, first of all, amazing. You did it at such a young age, but you do need that. You need folks that are young, ambitious, have the energy, want to do the right thing at all costs, and then can kind of have FU money, if I'm being frank, right? Because you don't have to worry about playing the game to get to the next level. And unfortunately, that's kind of what I've been seeing, is folks like you end up getting sort of pushed out because they're like, well, this guy's not going to get on board. And unfortunately, I think even the most well-meaning people in leadership don't know how to, they just can't move this gigantic ship, So I don't, and I've heard, personally, and just in my field, and you as well, and on the more classified side, I've heard people in power talk about some of the threats that are really that we with some of our capes and limbs of our military. It's pretty scary. There are some things I hear, and I'm like, why isn't and I guess the general public can't hear that, because that's the other thing I was going to ask you about is, what do you coming from, obviously coming from another country, you came here later after you were already an adult, so you can see that I guess the cultural differences. You're not just born native here in the in the United States. Understand other cultures. Is there a cultural difference that you think, hey, even take outside the DoD, just our general schooling as children and as a nation, is there something we need to be doing differently? Is it education? Is it just the fact that we've been so complacent for so long and we never have wars on our soil? I mean, you get September 11, things like that, but generally I feel like people are more complacent. You used that term earlier. Is that, how big of a problem is complacency and just in the younger generation, I guess?
Yeah, obviously the culture is vastly different, right, between nations. France is also not a great of a culture, because there's also this kind of continuous assistance of people, right? We get free healthcare. I remember having employees that got a pimple literally on their hand and take 2 weeks off because they couldn't type on a keyboard anymore for 2 weeks, right? I mean, I've seen it all. Including those guys getting paid in the meantime, right? So that's also a very toxic culture. 35 hours a week, all this kind of nonsense. How do you compete? It's a balance. I like the fact that sometimes we spend too much time working and don't realize the efficiency and the outcomes vastly decrease if you work too much too. So it has to be balanced, But clearly, I wasn't a big fan of what was going on in France. That's why I left, and I could relate much more, to the commercial, American dream aspect of the United States. That's why I always felt home here, because it's kind of my brain already worked this way. It wasn't a play pretend kind of thing. It's just the way I think.
Exactly,
I'm more concerned about what I've seen now, between the Silicon Valley companies. There's kind of two bubbles, right? There's a DoD bubble, stuck in time, no cell phone in the building, Congress, with no term limits, completely outdated for a good, 70-80% of it. Not understanding kind of the key threats to the nation, the key capabilities to invest in, so that's very concerning. And then you see the Silicon Valley bubble, which is as concerning to me, because they live in this bubble of kumbaya universe where they I remember doing keynotes in the Silicon Valley, right? And I would have people come and wait to shake my hand and stuff, and always you would have a few wait in line just to tell me they wouldn't want to shake my hand because it's covered in blood and we're killing babies with jets. It's just
Yeah.
the same
Yeah.
kids that are effectively enjoying the freedom and the benefits of it, and the sacrifices
Exactly.
of the warfighter. They just live in this cocoon, and some of them even told me, like, they were gonna have to go after talking to me to the puppy room to go spend some time to recover from it, because that's what we have to do now. When you go to a conference, you have to bring a puppy room because conferences can be so scary to people. So when you have that kind of nonsense, and when you enable that, quite honestly, and companies, really started to wake up, because I feel like it started with ping pong tables, and now it's just completely out of control, and kind of the expectations of employees is completely insane. They fail to often deliver business value, and they still expect, the cushy salary and the cushy benefits, and they do very little work for it. And so that's pretty concerning, right? So, and then you have this anti-military nonsense and anti-American now as well, against the
Yeah.
flag, against the national anthem. It's very concerning, and that was, by the way, created and pushed from very early 30 years ago by China. None of this is an accident. It was directly pushed into the schools, the school system in the United States. That's why China is, pretty smart. That's why they scare me a lot more than Russia. They're able to kind of infiltrate and buy from the inside and slowly take over. You've seen it in Africa. You've seen it everywhere. They have this non-threatening ability to show up, and now we can even make penicillin in the United States because effectively 100% of the main capabilities are not here anymore. And so if we were to go into a conflict, we don't realize the dependency of the supply chain. It would be a complete. That's why China is just laughing at us, wondering how it could be so stupid. You've seen it with TikTok, right? You've seen it with all the push of the supply chain to China. It's just and you've seen it with COVID, right? Getting away with this, effectively convincing people that calling the virus, the China virus, is racist. You wouldn't see that if it was an African country. I can tell you that we would all just call it, the Kenya virus or whatever it is. So it's just interesting, kind of the power that China has. The lab thing, we all knew it was coming from the lab. There was no doubt when we were in the government, that it was the case. But yet, China was powerful enough, right, to convince social media companies, American companies, to ban the discussion. That is a pretty big, significant threat to the nation.
Amen, brother. I mean, yeah. I mean, it's. I know we're getting a little less techie here and less DoD, but the culture aspect of this thing's important. Like you've just laid out, it is. And I put in a note in here. I think China plays the long game, right? If you really get into all the stuff that they've been doing over the years, and again, for listeners, this is not the Chinese people. This is the Chinese
Right,
regime,
the
the Chinese
CCP.
government. Very big, exactly right. The Chinese.
They don't have a
Party.
choice. They don't have a choice.
Exactly right. Exactly. So, and because a lot of things you just laid out, our government has, and it's, it is one side of the aisle, to be honest, right? It's the far left, and it's this left movement that's, I don't like to make this a political, podcast, but that movement now is enabling everything you just laid out, right? So however you vote, you should just use your head and think about, hey, if there's one side doing something that's going to eventually lead to, a different way of life for our children, our grandchildren, shouldn't that be paramount? And shouldn't that be how shouldn't that be the way we vote today? But again, that's not even advocating for any one party. But if there's a party that's enabling what you just laid out, and right now it is, the reality is that is the left. We should all be thinking about that. It's crazy on the other side too, and we need to be thinking about that. But in this particular case, that is a problem. Your example of someone having a pimple on their finger and not wanting to type, that is that is so indicative of a simple silly example, but it is such a. I don't know how to get my head around that, because I was brought up the exact opposite, right? Where my dad was the blue collar, get out. He was construction. It was 4:30 in the morning in New England. It's snowing, sleeting. It's 31 degrees out, and he's sick. Puts his hood on. He's like, "I'll be back in 14 hours." And that's it. You don't not go to work. Like, he's like, as long as you can walk, you can work.
Yeah.
Go. So, and I do feel like we're losing that, And now to your point, there's got to be some balance, right? The Elon Musk mantra of sleeping an hour a night or whatever. Okay, your brain is not.
Elon Musk is probably too much on the extreme. I'm more like Elon, but that's probably not a good idea.
Yeah, well, some of you have a flow. You actually reach a flow state, and you actually are productive at certain. So, but majority of humans need 6 to 7 to 8. We're generally the same species, and we do need sleep and all that stuff. But I just, but again, folks like you are empowered and you're passionate about it. So that basically is an intrinsic, motivation.
Yeah, when you have the passion, right, it's not going to work. That's the thing.
It's not right. You're
excited,
right? You would do this stuff for free, and you probably have done a lot of it free since you made your money prior. But so one thing you mentioned about these commercial companies and that divide between, because the meetings I'm in, the meetings you're all in, we always hear, well, how do we bring Silicon innovation to the DoD, Silicon Valley innovation to the DoD?
Mm-hmm.
Where Facebook, the FANG, Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, Google, et cetera, they are way advanced technology-wise, software-wise, right? Talk about DevSecOps and all the buzzwords you want to add. They push, software updates multiple times a minute, an hour, a day, whatever it might be. And then in the DoD space, and I talk to friends about this, and their mind's blown. Like, to get, you get a deployed weapon system out in the Navy, and to make a software update to that thing, for example, just a software update could take years. And they're like, "Oh, you're exaggerating."
Yeah.
Like, no, not exaggerating. So, and that's old hat to you. You certainly know that, but a lot of listeners may not, fully appreciate that. But what is the problem with bringing the DoD? I'm sorry, the Silicon Valley innovation to the DoD. Where are those blockers? There's probably a lot of them.
Well, first, maybe the Silicon Valley needs to remember that their money initially started from DoD.
Yeah.
So there would be no Silicon Valley without the department. So that's the first thing, because I feel like there's this again, complacency and anti-military nonsense. That's the first thing. The second thing is you see a lot of the companies in the Silicon Valley, engaging with DoD. You've seen it with Google, and then you have a few 100 employees writing protests, sign it, and now Google walked away from Project Maven, talking about the fact that they don't want to enable weapon systems, with their technology, which is kind of ridiculous, right? It's like, you're helping the Department of Defense, which is literally here to have weapon capabilities, ideally that we don't have to use, but the deterrence of it would prevent, and save lives and prevent people from going after the United States. And, they don't think of that, right? They just think of it, oh, we're going to go and kill babies, like I told you about, right? And so it's actually pretty concerning, right? Because what you end up seeing is, in Afghanistan, right, recently we bombed the wrong vehicle, right? And we killed, I think it was 13 people, kids, right? And I would argue to those great people at Google that signed this great memo that if we had the capability that they were building with Project Maven, because AI brings a much better insight and better ability to scale compared to people, looking at satellite imagery, obviously we could have potentially prevented this nonsense. So you could actually have saved lives. So maybe you need to look at yourself in the mirror tomorrow and realize, hey, I actually am part of the blood here and not the solution. So that's a good food for thought, But at the end of the day, there's problems on both sides, right? You see Google, reacting to my exit, for example, because I kind of, use that example a lot. Google saying, well, we're still doing a lot of work with the department. We're back, we're back in business with DoD. But then, I was on a call with leadership, both on the government side and the Google side. And you have, 20 general officers on the call. Not one would have the brain or the balls, I don't know, to ask the question that I asked, which is, hey, great, you want to do business again with us. Thanks, love it. But are you willing to give us access to technologies if it's going to be used on weapon systems? Or is it just for email and business nonsense? Because business stuff is great, but this is not what the mission is about, right? So you're okay taking the business money, but you're not okay taking the weapon money. It's kind of a joke, right? You can't do that, right? And they say, well, as long as you follow the terms and conditions, of the products, then you can use it any way you want. Well, of course, the terms and conditions are pretty clear. You cannot hurt anyone, with the technology. So technically, they're just telling you, no, you can't use it for weapon systems. And they tried to get away with it, right? So when I left, they started to put press releases saying, that they do a lot of stuff with DoD. But it's Gmail and G Suite stuff, right? That's not the real stuff. That's not what we want. We don't care about emails. We have Office 365. It works just fine. Thank you very much. Go back to wherever you want to go. But that's the kind of stuff that people need to think about, right? Because I see AI ML companies do the same. That we don't mind helping, make business decisions with DoD, and we're going to take your money, and we are fine taking that blood money, right? Because it's for business stuff. But when it's for weapon, I don't want to take the money. Oh, I'm like, you can't, pick your, if you don't like the money, then don't take it,
Right.
Don't pretend,
Right.
Go work for
picking.
VA, or DHS or whatever you want to do, but that's the thing, right? People have a selective set of, decisions they make based on the very weird set of constraints, and they manage to massage it in a way to get away with whatever they want to do. And that's a pretty scary thing. And the DoD is also very responsible, for all this stuff. The lack of engagement, the fear. I was probably the senior official with probably Dr. Roper and Preston Dunlap engaging the most with industry at Ask Me Anything events every 2 weeks live, 1,000+ people coming to ask questions. Most people don't do that. They don't have the will or the courage, I don't know, to engage publicly and openly with industry. There's kind of this taboo of like, oh, I don't want to talk and say the wrong things, or even engage at all. We're going to do a bid and it's going to be in writing, and we're not going to talk, and it's going to be very very controlled environment. That's just not what I wanted to do. We enabled over 750 companies do business with the department. Companies that had never done business with DoD ever before, I got them accredited. We helped them get to contract vehicles, so we completely streamlined the process of companies doing business with DoD, which is one of the big blocker, right? So we also demonstrated, right, that in 45 days, we're able to do the DevSecOps basic ordering agreement contract vehicle to be able to put hundreds of companies on contract. And that was 45 days. So all this stuff is doable. What we know now is that the leadership excuse of saying, oh, it's a big behemoth and we can't get things done and it takes forever is not true. I had no funding, I had no team, and yet with a big push and really getting excitement and momentum from the bottom up, we relied the teams, and we managed to partner and engage with different teams in the department and fund the people, fund the gems, often in the lower ranks, people that get stuff done, and we did it, So no excuse for people pretending they can't do it.
There are a lot of excuses to stick to the the status quo. There really is. You hear it a lot, and you're just like, well, gosh, I really just think. Now, some of them are valid. I hear, and this is what I wanted to ask you about too. This is more on the technology side. It's sort of like you've heard, and I've heard this response personally, because this, again, I'm in this field as well. It's like, hey, we can't do things the way Facebook or Amazon or big banks do it. We launch missiles. We launch missiles against other missiles.
Yeah.
We need to hit a bullet with a bullet, right? Which is anti-missile type stuff. So it's like if we mess up, people die. So we have to,
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I never really bought that. There's ways to do things.
Yeah, it's a good excuse, right? It sounds pretty good on paper.
Yeah.
People are going to be like, oh, that's true. And it's not completely wrong. But what I end up doing, right, and actually I just recorded a video on Learn with Nick, my learning platform, about this, because I felt like, that's the kind of objections you get pretty much in every industry with a different twist. But,
twist, yeah.
effectively what that means, right, is, hey, we need to use better examples. And so I swapped from a Netflix, Facebook standpoint to a SpaceX, Tesla standpoint, right? And then when you start talking about SpaceX, I think you have less objections, right? So, we start using that, and quite honestly, immediately people resonate more. And so it's about your ability to also present and market things, and do the pitch of these ideas. That's why I'm not bad at it, because of running businesses. You have to learn to do that if you want to make it or break it. And so, it's kind of what we miss a little bit sometimes is how do you market it and get people excited and get momentum built around it. So I kind of explain, how to do that in that video. But really, at the end of the day, it's a good excuse because the duty mission is special, right? But the software is not, and that's what people need to stop overthinking. You look at SpaceX; they use open source software, they use Linux, they don't use space hardware.
Right.
It's all very commercial driven with open source capabilities to open up this kind of space bubble of vendor locked in set of hardware and software, chips and stuff. So they demonstrated that, hey, you can actually rethink the way we do space software and hardware, and to completely go to open architecture and open open source model. And the return has been tremendous. That's how they are able to move fast. They have the ability, to build 17,000 times the software a day, 3 hardware-in-the-loop testing a day to run the software on the hardware, and then the ability to update the software hours before the launch.
Right. Which is insane. Which in the DoD world, they would say, you can never do that. You can never do that, right? Your requirements can't change they have to stay static for 5 years before we can even write the software. It's like, really? Is it really? It's a change of mindset.
I mean, I think we changed that a lot, right? I think we kind of it's still there for some of the big programs that are stuck in time, but we also kind of started to educate a lot on the agility aspect of things, and it's it's funny, right? Because all this stuff is not even like fancy digital transformation or DevSecOps stuff. It's really basic agile concepts, and that's 22 years old. So that usually tells you that the DoD is now literally 22 years at the catching up time frame. So it's pretty scary.
Yeah. Without getting too detailed, I recently had to put together a brief, and one of the charts was agile versus waterfall to convince the audience that we need to get more agile, and that was what's today? It's 2022. As think about how old of an agile versus waterfall. What is this, a 20-year-old discussion? I mean, or 58, whatever it is, right? I mean, it's like, come on, man.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
I think it's 22 years.
Yeah.
So
it's like, wow.
It's nuts.
Well, so what are you doing now? Are you optimistic? So you obviously took a step back out of the, you kind of left, you left your the CSO role, which we were all kind of like, man, he's doing amazing stuff. I figured you'd be there forever, just changing the world, sort of thing. And then you kind of left. It's like, no, I believe you. I believe that's what you wanted. So are you optimistic? What are you doing now, and how are you continuing to chip away at the mission without with not being in that formal role?
Yeah, honestly, after Dr. Harper left because he was an appointee, from the previous administration, the momentum completely died. And then you saw, some of the new leadership, not the Secretary of the Air Force, is actually very good, but the lower rank be appointed and quite honestly start pushing. For the first time, I actually started hearing the wrong things. That's actually pretty interesting, right? For 3 years in the building, I would hear the leadership say the right things, just not do it, so talk the talk, but not walk the walk. But for the first time ever, I started to hear the wrong things, and that's pretty scary. That's actually much worse. At least if they agree, now it's like, okay, how do we do it? If they don't even agree, you go back. So for me, it was like, wow. So now I have to go back, and everything I've done the last 3 years, I have to demonstrate again, and that's just that's just not something I want to do. And more importantly, they started to tell me, hey, you cannot do the public stuff you used to do. You have to be more quiet. You're too loud. You're too noisy. You're too, too public. I don't know if it's jealousy or whatever it is, but it's also control. It's whatever it is. But, clearly I was pretty public compared to most of these people, Most of them don't even have a LinkedIn profile, not that they had a job in their lives before anyways. So it's kind of what it is, And so, you end up... really with handcuffs, and I felt like, hey, if I come out and I can actually raise awareness, and look, no one is willing to do it, right? I was talking to all these people talking about leaving and all of them taking cushy jobs, at some primes and some startups or whatever. No one was willing to put their career on the line to say what I had to say. They all agreed, oh, you should do it, but no one would do it. So I had no choice to do it, and I don't regret it whatsoever. I will be back probably in 25, assuming whoever wins, but I hope we win and we'll be back. But, at the end of the day, we're running out of time. And what scares me is, what used to be pretty bad when I left, it actually got pretty, 10 times worse since I left. Not only because a lot of the key people doing the stuff end up leaving too after me. You got Preston Dunlap leaving, Jason Weiss. You got a lot of people on the verge of leaving. 7 of 8 of the founders of Platform One left. So it's pretty concerning. And look, they're still helping, still making a difference on the outside, but it's not the same. We need people on the inside too, right? You can't completely impact everything from the outside, so it has to be balanced. That's why I want to go back. Right? I would not have left if I could have, or if I felt like I could still do stuff that would make sense to stay. And so I left. I like I said, I have 3 kids now. I wanted to spend time with them. I didn't get to see them much. I was working crazy hours during the 3 years. Some of my I had 2 EAs, and both of them were working for SCSs before, and they told me, you're like 10 SCS in terms of your Skype. We've never seen this. They were struggling to keep up. And again, just me, So if I keep up, you should be able to keep up too. And they were great, They were always managing to get things done. But it tells you like the fact that the leadership is not used to this kind of volume of engagements, So so when I left, I joined 11 boards that I'm on again, and I launched. I have my show on LinkedIn and YouTube. In the nick of time. And then we just launched Learn with Nick, which is this continuous learning platform. Because I go back to learning because I didn't want to do this, but I had to because when you look at the training out there, it's either very stale, and you see universities happy to take a pretty heavy check and then completely fail at delivering a curriculum that's up to date. In fact, I had universities reach out to me to take my stuff and make it a curriculum, but they refused to meet my requirements to update it even 3 years. They do every 5-year cycles, and that's completely insane in IT. I was doing every year, which I think is the right number. So I said, hey, let's find a middle ground and do 3 years. And they wouldn't even do 3 years, so it's only 5 years. And I'm like, you guys, you're a waste of my time. So we walked away from that and started looking at some of the existing content. But often what you're going to find is, Microsoft, Google, and whoever else, Amazon and others, Red Hat, VMware, whatever, pushing their secret sauce, and it's really pushing this vendor locked-in training.
Yeah.
And it's on purpose, right? They make it free and very, easily accessible, very cheap, but it's really pushing their products. And so I didn't want that. I think it's important that we are agnostic, cloud agnostic, and vendor agnostic. I've seen how much we end up paying when we're completely locked in to some of the legacy stuff, with the Oracles of the world, the Microsoft of the world, extending support contracts, costing billions to the taxpayer in the process for years, And I wouldn't believe the numbers when I saw some of these contracts, But, so I wanted to do, something that would be updated continuously with new content every week. So we just launched, 10 days ago, and we're having a massive amount of traction. People, going on the website to register and getting access to the content. And we create things, so it's very sweet and short. People don't have the time. It's funny how people spend a lot of time watching freaking Netflix and whatever else, but they have no interest in investing in them for themselves to learn and to do better when it comes to their learning. And it's funny. It's again that complacency maybe is back there again.
Now that's Learn with Nick. You said, is that what you just launched?
Yeah, Learn with Nick.
Okay. And now where do we find that? Is that on YouTube?
No, it's on learnwithnick.com. So you just go there. It's a platform, and we have created content. So and that's the other thing. You go to some of these platforms. You go type DevSecOps. You find the 4,000 videos. People are like, I don't know which one to watch. I have no clue.
Yeah.
So it's all created. It's all stuff that people can spend a couple of hours on. And I always recommended my team, and I gave my team an hour a day to learn. Both to catch up and then to learn. We cover everything from MLOps to data science to DevSecOps, digital transformation, and culture stuff. A lot of managers taking the course. We find also a lot of training for managers that are effectively all a bunch of buzzwords. They end up leaving the course with no real understanding of the subject, and I hate that, right? So I really felt that's why I spent so much time in the department educating the leadership, and that's why it was so tough to have to do it again, But
Yeah.
the ability to also do that in a meaningful way and speaking the language, and with my business background and my technical background, I kind of merged both, because you need to have that business sense and you need to have that technical awareness enough to be dangerous, right? So you want to bring enough tangible stuff for them to pay attention to it, and also some type of business outcomes or organizational outcomes. And so I think we did a pretty good job at it. We have a 50% off for the military and civilian community. So they just use the coupon military to get 50% off. So
Okay.
it's been going great. I think we see banks and that's the thing, right? We see telcos, banks, healthcare companies. Everybody's struggling with air gap and having to do with big organization. They would find a lot of great nuggets there, because we kind of explain how we managed to bring DevSecOps to the largest behemoth of the world,
Right.
the DoD. And so I think, people use us as a way to say, hey, if they could do it
Right. What
on
the
a
hell's our
65
excuse?
years old,
Yeah. Yeah.
jet, you can probably do it in my bank. That's
Exactly.
pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, well, very cool content. I got it up here, and it's you got a lot of really good content there. I mean, and there, I'm looking at in the nick of time. You're at least on YouTube here. I'm seeing a lot of those. How is in the nick of time related to Learn with Nick? It might be a dumb question, but
Yeah, so in the nick of time is more like a podcast, like what you do, I guess. It's more like
okay,
guests,
got it.
right? So it's not just me talking; it's really having a guest every week. So
Gotcha.
every week we have pretty amazing guests from different backgrounds, both from commercial and government. We had pretty much everybody coming from the DoD standpoint that's meaningful in innovation. And Learn with Nick is more like taking this content and make it something you can go ahead and watch as a self-learning capability.
Gotcha.
We're doing a great partnership we're working on to have hands-on exercises, and we're gonna have a Linux for certification process. So then people will leave Learn with Nick with a certificate, and I think that's pretty cool too.
Oh, neat. Yeah, I'm looking at a lot of your videos here in the nick of time, and they're very short and right to the point, and very, very targeted at what we all need to be. I mean, if you're in the tech space and or the DoD space, these are like, I don't know, these should be all like minimum required learning.
Yeah, these nuggets. I mean, the one people could go and watch that they're gonna have a lot of fun is learn fast, fail fast,
Yeah,
don't fail
yeah.
twice for the same reason.
I mean,
Stuff
what
like
is
that.
Kubernetes
We
in under
have
4 minutes?
how
That's
to.
like it's almost like I'm just looking
Yeah,
at
exactly. So we
yeah,
try to cut stuff, make it short. Yeah,
yeah,
that's the thing, right? You see all this training with dozens of people babbling for hours on stuff. I
yeah.
hate
You
that.
can't.
It would
I
be
know. Yeah,
to the point.
and that's what that's usually the blocker that people don't start because they don't have the time. But for 7-6 minutes, whatever these are, I
But
mean,
you know why,
it's
right?
no
It's because
excuse.
the companies pay you on the per minute standpoint, right? It's the same. It's the same
Yeah.
wrong metrics. Just like we have a video on the DORA metrics, right? The DevSecOps metrics on what to track. I remember DoD tracking and looking at number of lines of code, right? And it's complete nonsense, right? You push people to create more complex software, more likely to have bugs and issues just because you push them to pay them by the line of code. It's
Flock. Yeah,
complete
Slock.
nonsense.
That's right.
Right, but
Yeah.
the training community kind of does the same, right? So they pay you by the minute, and
Yeah.
so you end up doing longer videos for no more value, and just to get more money. So because we don't get paid like that,
Yeah.
we don't do that, right? So
Yeah.
it's the wrong metrics again,
It's your own incentive structure for sure. Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's end with this, Nick. Nicholas, are you optimistic? I always like to. I always hope the answer is yes,
I'm not
but
too optimistic. I'm not gonna lie. I don't want to be a Debbie Downer all the time, but I think it's concerning, right? Because China is not waiting for us to figure it out. They started investing at 7 years old, right?
yeah, yeah,
To kids on AI ML stuff, right? They already they built this Shanghai Data Exchange, which is kind of a stock exchange for data. U.S. and European companies are dumb enough to use it to sell their data, and of course the CCP gets a free copy of the data in the process. So they're collecting a massive amount of data for their AI/ML programs. You see TikTok, which is literally effectively the dream of the CCP come true to get all the intelligence they need to get and
yeah.
be able to push the content they want to push, potentially swaying elections. By the way, you have a massive chunk of Gen Z using, I think it's 40% using TikTok now as a search engine, which is so
Gosh.
so insane. So it's
Yeah.
I don't feel good about it. I think that the country is more divided than ever. The president said he would unite the country. I think they've done the opposite. It's pretty concerning. It's just not good. I think if we don't take meaningful action, I'm very concerned. That we want to have the ability to catch up, because again, you're competing against 1.4 billion people that are not complacent. And honestly, they don't have the choice to be complacent, because the communist regime is making sure that they don't have a say in any of that stuff. So, we love the democracy we have and we enjoy it. But, it comes at a cost in terms of also keeping up with what's going on and staying awake at the wheel, so.
Yeah, every great empire falls, right? And we don't want. I'm sure hoping that ours is not the next to fall in my lifetime, my kid's lifetime, my kid's lifetime, or ever really. But it is this trend and this complacency that is the beginning of a lot of it. You're right, 100%. Well, folks listening, just this is not a doomsday podcast, but just listen to this conversation and just kind of research what's going on out there. So, but anyway, Nicolas, thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.